PRSroom attended an intimate conversation at BG Clubhouse by Browngirl Magazine with renowned reproductive endocrinologist Dr. Lucky Sekhon, where her book, The Lucky Egg, took center stage, and absolutely nothing was off the table. This wasn't just a conversation, it was clarity, it was empowerment. In this special episode, our very own Rashmi Gill sat down with Dr. Sekhon to unpack the truths, myths, and realities surrounding fertility, candidly, compassionately, and without filters. So let's see what Rashmi and Dr. Sekhon discuss.
Just to give you context, I'm Rashmi. I am about to hit 50 this year. I had my first child when I was 37 and my second at 45. And both were IVF. No one talked to me about IVF or having children. And this book, I promise you, is what everyone needs if you are going through this process, thinking about going through this process, even wanting options for the future, because you need to have, even if it's just options. I started following you in, I don't know, when it was 2020 or whenever it was, when you started really kicking on to Instagram. And all I kept thinking is, yes, finally, because I had been married, just to give you context, I think I've spoken to you about this.
Yeah.
I've been married 10 years. And I'm also a Punjabi girl from a Punjabi household. And the kind of, dare I say it, BS that I heard was disgusting. I will say it was disgusting. It's your fault you're not having kids.
Yeah.
Why aren't you having children? Are you having problems with your marriage?
Yeah.
If you have children, your problems will get sorted out.
Oh God.
I'm like,
worst advice.
worst advice ever. So the stigma, even back then, was like full on. And I don't know what it was. The mental load is big. It's overwhelming, and it's all put on you. And I knew if I was going to get pregnant and have children, I wanted 4 kids. I wanted 2 boys, 2 girls. And had this kind of dream in my head. And so no one talked to me about IVF, and I didn't even think it was an option. Originally from London, so America was where everything happened. And the most amazing doctor, I'm going to let go of your hand because I know you've got it. I'll hold on to this.
Hold your hand.
He was amazing, and I got pregnant the first time. I was like, this is incredible. Then, tried again. Didn't work. And then 6 years later, eventually had my son. But even that second time around, it messes you up so badly. So I want to personally thank you again for bringing this book into the world, for putting it out there while also having your own journey of its own. And I'm glad Trisha asked that question about what it must have felt like to write it. Probably
no one asked me that ever.
Yeah, because I was interested, like it must have felt cathartic or like...
Yeah, all the things.
What did you do for the mental sort of stability and health? Like what about during your actual fertility journey?
Oh, the fertility journey, I think I underestimated how I was going to feel. So I didn't lean on enough support, and I did not focus on that part enough, for sure. And then the minute I wrapped my head around, oh my God, like I'm going through it, to even go through, like overcome secondary infertility. And I think this is what led to a lot of mental health issues for me personally during COVID, was that I hadn't processed anything. I was like, oh, I'll process it later, like working, I did my embryo transfer on a day where I did like 11 other embryo transfers. Oh, wow. And one of them was the hardest one I've ever done in my life, and I was sweating buckets. And then they were like, oh, your turn. And I was like, well, good news, my bladder's full because I haven't had a moment to pee. And I always use this example when people are like, I was a little like stressed out today at work and now I'm doing my transfer. I'm like, don't worry about it. Those moments of stress aren't necessarily going to be the game changer for you. And I went through that and just like flew by the seat of my pants. I did not focus on my mental health. I was very much kind of like the book. I was like, who cares? Just like get it done, you know? And then I thought I would process it later, and I thought I'd have this wonderful pregnancy journey. And I was like 17 weeks when the city shut down. And then I had like antepartum depression because I was alone. And I don't think my husband was great during that time, I'm going to be honest with you. Don't put this on social media. Because he processes crises different than I do, and I didn't have any other outlets. And so
Right.
I'd be pacing around like, oh my God, the world is ending, everything's gonna suck and be over, and we're all gonna die. And he'd be like, it'll be fine. Just stay calm. And I'd be like, I need an
can't even
outlet.
drink.
And I couldn't go out. Like, I didn't feel, there was a time where we were wiping down groceries. So I wasn't exactly like strolling around town. And I just felt so supremely isolated, and it was such a hard time for me. So he helped me. I think he's like down for whatever. Like I was like, okay, we're gonna freeze embryos. I was like, okay. And I was like, you need to like give me your sperm. Okay. Or you need to do this. Okay. But he wasn't like, I don't think he was stressed about it. I don't think he got it. And I don't think he understood like how my brain works in that situation. So I was kind of alone actually, to be honest. No one ever asked me that either. You guys are really good.
Because when I look back, the first time around, my husband was traveling a lot.
Yeah.
So my best friend came to a lot of my appointments with me. And that was one of the biggest things that when I look back. So during my first IVF, I didn't talk about it during. But then afterwards, I spoke to a lot of friends about it. And funny enough, 9 out of 10 of them would say, I went through IVF.
Wow.
I went through IVF. I was like, why didn't you talk about it? And listen, you've already said this. If you don't want to talk about it, you don't. It's your decision. Yeah. But my biggest thing is, I think a lot of it is to do with the shame, the stigma and stuff like that. And then that's when it hit me. I was like, well, if I'm feeling like this, I bet you there's other women out there who feel like this and feel alone. And that's how I felt the first time around. And then the rest of it wasn't so much feeling alone. It was obviously the mental, emotional stuff that you go through. Yeah. But the one thing I've always noticed is we all talk about what the woman goes through, but to your point, we never really think about what the guy goes through. And I don't think there's been enough education about what your partner is going to go through. Because they don't really understand the physical, emotional side. And also women, let's just say it, we're tuned differently. So one thing I made my husband do, mainly because I can't do it myself, is I can't do injections or shots to myself. So I made him do it. Yes. And that was one way of being connected to it, because it's let's be honest, it's a less sexier way of having a child, right? Your baby is being grown in this petri dish and then put into you, and then off you go. So do you talk about that at all in the book about men?
There's a whole section on male fertility. I think there's lots of things to say about that, and I'm so glad you brought it up. I think men don't know how to show up, and they feel very guilty and awkward, even if it's like the issue is there's a low sperm count. Still, a lot of the burden of treatment falls on the female partner. Right. And so I think I see a lot of guilt, and I see a lot of like inward shame, like not wanting to like say, oh my gosh, like I'm so sorry, but like, you know, you're doing all the work and like this is my issue, but it's not really, you really need to take a team approach. And so there's a lot of talk about, you know, couples and how to approach communication, because just like the COVID thing for Bobby and I, like he's such a wonderful husband, but you know, in those situations, that's where conflict would arise because everyone processes stress differently. And his way of processing stress is very much like kind of just keep moving forward and let's like just get it done, you know? And I think I grew up with parents like that too. And that's just not how my brain works and it doesn't help me. So I think learning how to communicate with each other and understand that everyone processes things differently, and just because one person isn't outwardly showing that they care about something doesn't mean that they don't care. It's just their defense mechanism.
Different way of handling it.
So I think men should read this book and they'll learn a lot, because I think one of the biggest ways that you can support someone, whether it's a partner, a friend, or a family member, is don't burden them. They're already burdened enough. Don't burden them by making them now teach you everything. Learn it yourself and show up. You know, that's the best way to show up, is to educate yourself about the process, about, you know, what the person's going through.
So there's the generational thing. So with my parents, they didn't know about my IVF journey the first time around. But because we'd moved to London and we had one frozen embryo left, which didn't work afterwards, but they would get my letters.
Oh.
And so it was like, do you want to renew? Do you want to renew? And they were so sweet. They never mentioned anything. But then at one point, my mum went, Beta, to do something about this embryo. And then obviously then that's a conversation. So she was very sweet. But then on the flip side, I now have an 11-year-old daughter and a 5-year-old son. And with both of them, I'm going to tell them that babies aren't just born one way.
Yes.
There are many ways to have a child.
Yeah.
Thank you. Because I feel like, again, it goes to having this knowledge. I wish I had it. Now we're getting it. Now I want to normalize it to a point where I don't say to my daughter or son, when you have children, because I don't want it to be an expectation. I say, if you decide to have children, these are your options. You can. I will talk to my daughter about freezing her eggs, because regardless of if she uses them or not, she could donate them. She could give someone else the chance of having a child. It's the fact that you have options and it's okay to have them. So how do you feel that this book is going to help in terms of, especially, let's just be honest, in our community, the South Asian community, how easy do you think it's going to be for the rest of us to have these conversations, both with the generation that's come before us and the generation after?
I mean, I hope this book makes it easier. And I think conversations like this, right? Social media, like sharing some of this conversation with other people that didn't have the privilege of being here tonight. I think seeing yourself in other individuals that are talking openly about their experiences in this area, that lifts a lot of stigma. It makes people feel like, oh, okay, I'm not alone. This is not a rare thing. And I didn't do anything wrong. I think people have to hear that over and over and over to believe it.
Yeah, it's that whole aspect of there's something wrong with you.
100%.
Or I've done something wrong. And to your point, you know, we're told growing up, don't have sex, don't get pregnant, you know, and then all of a sudden you get married 9 months later. Why haven't you had a baby? It's like, well, hold on. We've been given this mindset of don't have kids, don't have kids, and now you're expecting them straight away. Like,
well, don't think about sex, acknowledge sex. But now all of a sudden you're married, like, why are you getting pregnant?
Exactly.
Well, I wonder why.
And then you've had one, why are you having the next?
Totally.
So it just never ends. So these expectations, I feel like there has to be some kind of a switch.
Oh, it's going to. I mean, the fact that you're saying you're going to tell your kids about how babies are born and not put the expectation, the verbiage of like, if you choose to have children, that was never told to any of us. It was like, there was no like, if you get married. It's like, you're going to get married, you're going to have children. Like, that's our generation. We've all had to face that. And I think we have to give ourselves more credit than we do in that we are the first generation. It's a blessing that we weren't like just married off at 17. And, you know, my parents met on their wedding day. They had a full out arranged marriage.
Same.
Like, that is, my upbringing is like, that was my model, you know? So I'm the first generation in my family that was like, find your own partner. Getting married isn't your whole identity, and it's not like the first thing that you're going to do the moment you become an adult. It's like secondary. You're going to find a career and an identity. And my parents were thankfully very progressive for lack of the education and awareness that they were ever given in their life situation, in that they told us all, like, don't get married in your 20s. And I was like, that's weird. They were like the odd ones in the community, because I think they just recognized like education was important and it was going to be kind of impossible for us to maybe focus on that. But then like it became this whole conflict, because then my sisters were in their mid-30s and they weren't married yet, and they were kind of like, wait, now what? And we're like, well, now we're doing this mental U-turn. Like, I know. What am I supposed to do? Yeah, it was very weird. And so
it's so confusing though.
Very confusing. In my late 20s, I was like living in New York in residency, and then I kind of just like recognized that there were a lot of like toxic narratives, and I took matters into my own hands. And I put myself online, even on Shadi.com. This time I'm admitting that out loud. And you got to cast a wide net. Yeah. I didn't meet anyone good on there. And then I met Bobby. But I went to like the Sikh Film Festival, and I was just like out with friends, and I was like, oh, he's cute, and we met. But the point is, like, that wouldn't have happened if I just listened to my parents, who were like, go there, steady up, like get your things done. But then they magically expected me to find the person and like figure all these things out. So it makes no sense. We are set up for an impossible situation where we're like, okay, achieve, but also contend with your biological clock. Also, like, good luck learning how to track your ovulation, all of that. There's no like health class 2.0. Right. So this is just one, I hope, of many tools. It's like, here's some guidance. Here's a way to like make it an easier path forward, because you know, our moms and grandmas, like at least my mom and my grandmother, didn't have access. They weren't educated. They weren't given those tools. So in some ways, their life was a lot harder than mine. They had to do things they maybe didn't want to do and weren't ready to do. But it made their life easier because they were having babies in their 20s. You know, automatically, they didn't have to think about certain pressures. And I'm not saying no one has fertility issues in their 20s, but it's a huge factor, right? And so we're just kind of doing the best we can with the information we have, and we're going to pay it forward to the next generation. I am starting, I have an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old. Of course, I'm not talking about freezing eggs yet, but I am calling body parts by the correct name.
Same. Yeah.
And I'm not saying like, oh, don't talk about that.
No.
I'm not making them feel ashamed about their body parts and the fact that they're going to get periods. And I think having these open discussions and just really trying to get rid of that shame is how we really change everything.
Totally. So my mom, same, she had, my mom and dad had a full-on arranged marriage, didn't really see each other until the day of the wedding. But then my mom also shared with me that when they got married in India, they moved back to Kenya where my dad was and then came to London. And she shared, this is a while back, that she had a miscarriage. But then she was still expected to come home, cook a meal for like a whole extended family. And, and the fact that she shared that with me was really sort of, I don't think she would have shared that normally, but she felt like open enough to be able to share that. For those who will have suffered loss or miscarriages or it's not working, how do you give your patients hope without minimizing that sort of loss and grief? Because it's a tough situation.
Yeah, I think the human nature knee-jerk reaction is to put a Band-Aid on it. It's going to happen. Don't worry. And I think that I can say that sometimes as a fertility doctor because I really think prognosis-wise, it is going to happen, and I can give you that hope. I think when someone who doesn't have that knowledge or backing says it, it can fall on deaf ears. It can feel like it's just platitudes. It's just empty words and gestures, and it can actually be quite insulting and have the opposite effect. So I think something I talk a lot about in the book is what not to say and how to show up and support people that are in your life going through these struggles. But I think the key is you have to give everything space and time. And I don't think that rushing past and just trying to move on to the next step is always the healthiest approach. So I think, really processing and sitting with the grief, because it is grief, understanding that a lot of loss can lead to a sort of PTSD. And so people sometimes fail to recognize that, and they try to just barrel forward into the next transfer, to the next attempt. And then they find it really difficult mentally, to go through that. So I think creating space to be like, you need to process this mentally, and we need to work through this, because this is not something that is just going to go away magically the minute you have a successful outcome. There's a lot of emotional baggage, and there's people that talk about this all the time, the trauma of infertility. And even when they get to that happy outcome, it can affect other aspects of their life and how they feel during their pregnancy and even as a new mom. So I think it's important to acknowledge that and be working on that and moving forward. And I think the key when I help patients, I've had so many patients in really difficult, terrible circumstances, and then have seen them through to a better time. And we look back, how did we get through that? And the answer is compartmentalization. Again, what is the next best step? If you're going through a loss, maybe it's just getting to that negative pregnancy test and saying, okay, now we're at a point of resolution. Now the next phase is, let's do some testing to try to get some answers and then formulate our plan, right? And I think just taking those baby steps helps people get through some of the hardest situations in life.
So the first transfer I had, they put 2 embryos in, and obviously one only survived. And I went through my sort of grief, whatever you want to call it. But Maya still knows that she could have been one of 2. And I explained to her the whole process, and I say, basically, not eaten, but the other embryo is
gladiator.
So you're twice as strong. And then after I had my son, I had 2 embryos left over, and I transferred them. Neither of them succeeded. And when the last one didn't work, I spent that month grieving. I literally gave myself, to your point, I think I just carried on going.
Yeah.
And it was January 2025, or 20, I can't even remember, my years are all mixed up. It happened at the beginning of the year, 24. And I spent that whole month, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to give myself the space to understand that I no longer am going to have any more kids. And people would say to me, but at least you've got 2 beautiful, healthy kids. And I'm like, I have. And I feel blessed with that. But that doesn't take away the fact that I wanted more.
Yeah.
So I think that's also something that people need to understand.
Secondary infertility.
Right. Yeah. And just because they already have a child or more, doesn't mean that they didn't want more.
Yes.
And that in itself is a loss. So there's that sensitivity towards that.
There's a lot of projection, right? People will project. I mean, I get it, and it does bother me. I'm not going to lie. They'll be like, don't you need a boy? You know, I have family members that say, like, don't you want to have a son? Don't you want to, like, make sure your husband has that experience?
Oh, come on.
And I have male embryos. But, like, my husband and I are not on the same page about having more kids. And now I'm, like, at a point of resolution with that. But for a while, I wasn't okay with that. And that was, like, a contention, you know, a point of contention. And people would pick at it and not realize how much that bothered me, you know? And sometimes I found it hard when I'd have a patient who's like, I'm coming back for baby number 3, and I'm happy for them and excited for them, but you have your own shit. And, like, everyone is a human being, and, like, we're just being very vulnerable, and I'm saying things here that I haven't shared with a lot of people. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just hard. It's like everyone has a way to project what they think is right for your life, whether it's having kids or not having kids, or the partner that you're going to choose for yourself or not choose.
And it should be your choice.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be put on you or felt like you have to do something.
There's a lot of, like, you have to.
Yeah.
And it's like, who says, you know?
Exactly.
But it's, even if it's a really uninformed opinion, it still bothers you. It still hurts.
I remember when I was trying to get pregnant, with not even the first, but even the second, I was literally organizing baby showers.
Yeah.
And I was happy for everyone, because I was doing it because I wanted to. And now some of these people have got 2, 3 kids each. And there I am going, why can't I have a child?
Yeah.
What is
It's
wrong
hard.
with me? And why can't I? And on the one side, you want to be happy for your friends. And on the other side, you're literally being torn apart.
Yeah.
So it's a tough thing.
But that's always life. Like, I remember being a resident and delivering babies, and there's loving couples, and I'd be going through a terrible breakup. And like, there's so much love in the room. I am not feeling it.
For anyone out there who's kind of going through or thinking about starting this journey or feeling discouraged right now, what kind of messages would you have of reassurance or any kind of hope that you'd want them to carry with them?
Yeah, well, I think science and statistics are great, but also don't allow yourself to be reduced to that. And don't put yourself in a box. Don't let anyone put you in a box based on your AMH level, based on your age. I have seen miracles. And while I don't, as a scientifically minded person, say, let's all just wait around for a miracle, right? I think you have to focus on the things that you can do, the things that you can control, which is not necessarily a lot, let's be honest, and we have to be honest with that. I think as doctors, we have to be more honest about that. If we want patients to trust us and trust the medical establishment, we have to stop acting like science can fix all, right? But it can get you very far, but there's also room for miracles, and there's room for hope. And I think all too often we walk through life with labels, and some of them are self-inflicted, some of them are, you know, things that you're told by a doctor or things that you're told by well-meaning people that are giving you unsolicited advice. But at the end of the day, you are on your own individual journey, and there's no such thing as black and white or right or wrong. And you have to just do the best thing that you can do, the next best step with the best information that you have access to. So get access to information and recognize that there's no one path, but as long as you have the right information, you can make an informed decision that's right for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This was so great.
And I love when you hold my hand.
This was great.
I'm going to just plug in that we have a podcast called PRSroom, which we literally had our second and third episode talking about fertility. So
Amazing. Oh, I saw it. Yeah, I loved it. I shared it.
And it's literally just talking about our journey. It's not giving any advice. It's not really saying you should do this, you should not do this.
Right.
It's more so kind of what Rashmi was just asking you questions that she's got in her views or something. So Rashmi has gone through multiple IVF now, and I don't want kids. I thought of freezing my eggs. I'm at the point where, like, I know I don't want kids. I do want to go through adoption later on in my life. So we spoke about all of this. We have been very open about all of our journeys, and it's really for people to understand that, like, you know, we're not alone in this, especially in our community. We're not alone. I'm sure someone here probably will relate to one of us.
Yeah, absolutely.
The thing is, now a lot of people are messaging us separately after listening to our episode, and it's either them talking about their journey, perhaps looking for advice, but what would you, going back to the unsolicited advice, like what can we say to them for them to know that we're here to support you without, like, giving any sort of advice? Because again, it's just more so, we just get it. We know we need someone to listen, and when you do find someone or something that relates to you, like, a lot of people want to be open about it because they're like, oh shit, I'm not alone in this.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. I think it's a very responsible question because there are a lot of people, especially authors of prior fertility guides that we won't name, who aren't experts, right? But it's very easy to kind of position yourself as one or get carried away because people are now coming to you and it's like you want to be able to help them. But I think it's really intentional and wonderful and responsible that you're even asking me this question. I think something that could be really cool, because you guys are opening up this really important conversation and have so many different perspectives, is, to maybe compile resources that you're like, these are things that we can at least point you in that direction. But I think just, not that I have a vested interest or anything, but I think there's so many other things, right? Yeah. Like there's professional societies, there's vetted resources, because I think something that you can really do is help point people in the right direction. And you yourselves are saying, we're not the experts, but what you are doing for them is validating. And I think listening, validating, and then also an added bonus would be, and here's this wonderful list of resources. It could even be just on a landing page for your podcast website where you're other, books or websites or professional societies that provide information. There's even certain societies, I think it's called, what is it called? Fertility Within Reach or something like that, where they asked me to co-author a pamphlet on South Asian fertility. So there's so many different resources.
And even the health resources as well, where to go for sort of the mental health aspect.
Yeah.
Is that unsolicited though?
I don't think that's unsolicited. I think that's just saying these are things that we personally have used or vetted and said these are great. And you could even ask your community to give suggestions so that you're culling from a bigger, casting a wider net. I think unsolicited is someone being you should really get a move on. You're getting up there in age, or my friend tried this fertility cleanse, and you don't know where you're meeting that person at, so don't keep giving advice and piling things on because you don't know where their head is at. That's the one-to-one. It's not pointing to people to general resources. It's telling them what they should be doing and what is going to be the end-all be-it-all or cure for something that might be really complicated that you have no idea about. Come get ready with me. An idea. I'm going to pretend I go into a time machine. I'm going to be come get ready with me for my transfer day, and then reenact how I did everything that people say not to do.
That's great. That's so good.
See, it's exhausting. It is. And you don't want to grind your gears on things that don't necessarily matter. If it's a ritual that's calming to you and you're this makes me feel good, then fine. But at the end of the day, I'm going to be honest with you. And I'm not saying just don't do anything, it doesn't matter. But I just woke up and did my normal day. I made sure I was drinking lots of water because I knew I needed a full bladder. And I made sure I got a good night's rest the night before. That was just common sense because I wanted to be emotionally grounded and in a good place. But I did not take the day off, clearly, and I went upstairs to my office and sat at my desk for an hour or two and then took the subway home. That's what I did on my transfer day. And I remember, this was so foolish of me, but at the end of the day, as a patient, you're a doctor and then you're a patient. I remember peeing on a stick in Toronto at my parents' house in the bathroom because I was I just want to know if this worked or not. And I waited the proper amount of time, right? And I remember having this moment while I was waiting for the lines to appear. I was maybe I should have not been so crazy last week. And maybe I started second guessing, and it's but I know scientifically that none of those things would make a difference. If you think about what's happening, it's happening on such a micro level that you answering 20 emails or walking around at an event is not going to prevent that embryo from implanting. And if it's helpful to you to have an excuse to be okay, I'm going to take the afternoon off after because I just don't want to have to be stressed. I owe this to myself. Great. But don't be stressed if life circumstances don't allow that moment to happen, that you're messing up your chances because you're not. You're just not.
But also dealing with cultural expectations.
I mean, I think it's tough. I think not even just fertility related, just being an adult. And especially if you were not in that situation for some time and now I think a lot of people have experience with that. I had a year, between moving here and medical school where I moved back in with my parents, and that was a trip. I was wait a second, you're going to try to tell me how to live my life after I've been independent and out for so long? What? And I can't imagine the layers of complexity if you're trying to have a relationship and people are inserting. And I don't think there's an easy answer, to be honest with you. I think the best thing you can do is lay down boundaries. Even if at the beginning it's painful and creates conflict, it's only going to serve you in the end. I think the longer you let a toxic pattern continue and don't say something and don't have boundaries, the more you end up suffering. And I think that boundaries are very healthy, even though they're very much frowned upon, especially in our cultures, because it's like disrespect. But I think there's a way to be respectful in setting boundaries, and I think that's really the key thing to focus on. And education, like gentle education, and maybe it happens in small spurts to be like, this isn't really something that you should say. And I think especially if you're in this setting, you don't have to come at it from such a defensive place. It's like, well, you're not the one that's necessarily the problem or wrong. Like, this is a situation that needs to be up to date, and they need to be evolving with the times, and the fact that there are certain things that you just don't say socially, and just because you're family doesn't mean like no boundaries. You have to set those boundaries. And I think it's like about self-respect and just putting in the work and effort, because you're worth it and your happiness is worth it.
Can I add something to that? I think also having that conversation with your partner and being on the same page. If you're stronger together, right? And if you've both had this conversation, you're both together, making sure that both of you are setting boundaries together, it makes a big impact. Going back to when people used to say things to me, again, they would always ask me why I've been having kids. Once or twice I actually said to them, why don't you ask my husband? I guess what? They all went,
Yeah. I've done that too. Yeah.
And I was like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Why is everyone coming to me? Why don't they go to him?
Yeah.
It actually made people just shush and not say anything anymore. They knew not to, But have a conversation between the two of you, set the boundaries together, I would suggest.
Yeah, that's
Can
good
I add to
advice.
that question? Did you say you are making an audiobook?
No, there is an audiobook.
There is an
Yeah.
audiobook. Okay, because I was gonna say, because I feel like our families, there's a lot of lack of education.
Yes.
And like my mom has been asking a lot of questions since the podcast.
Yes.
I would love for her to listen to the book.
Yeah.
She's not gonna read it, but if she listens
Did you feel at all nervous about putting this all out there, like for your family members?
So
And like, was your mom at all like, oh my God, what are our relatives gonna
my
think?
mom was like, why?
Yeah.
I even said on the podcast, when I told her I wanted to please my ex, she's like, why?
Yeah.
Like, that's so not normal. Like, just have sex. I'm like, what man? Life right ring and have children without getting married.
Is there any backlash though, where she's like, okay, fine, this is your story, but like, do you have to broadcast it to the world?
So she feels awkward because I'm the only girl in my entire family. I have one brother, but I have 8 cousins that are all boys. So now even they're all listening to my podcast. They know I'm very open.
Yes.
But now they're like, I heard your podcast.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like, they don't know how to
They
say
don't have to-
anything.
Yeah. I experienced the same thing,
Same.
definitely.
I think the mothers are also like of my generation and later. They're trying to retune their own minds. Like they've been put in a certain mentality of growing up, and now they're trying to figure it out as well. And we're helping them figure it out.
And she can be very progressive and cool, but once the lens of other people come into play, that's when all of a sudden
What will
she
people
becomes
say?
100%. Where I'm just like, well, you didn't care about this last week. You were so progressive.
Right.
We had this great conversation, but it's like, it makes you really uncomfortable, like to go to events now and for people to be like, oh, I follow Lucky on Instagram. And she's like, oh God, like, oh God, I'm so embarrassed. And I'm like, and then people are always like, aren't your parents so proud of you? I'm like, no.
A whole different boat.
Yep.
I feel like we really should do one with guys here.
Yeah.
I wanted my husband to come, but he had to babysit. Otherwise, I was like,
Yeah. That would be cool.
but like, I feel like there needs to be. I always said that I was willing to have a kid from sex all the way to adoption. I was like, however way I need to have a child, I will do it. But I remember the first time I mentioned adoption, my husband was like, no.
Yeah.
And that's a whole different conversation because they don't feel like
Yeah.
it's their baby.
Yeah.
But then over time, as he saw that it was a child and it wasn't the biological side that mattered, it was the fact that we're going to have a child that we treat as our own.
Yeah. I think
then
we're really in a privileged position though. Like one thing, sometimes it feels like it's easier to be a man in a lot of ways, but imagine how much it sucks to not have this level of community.
Right.
Like for the men who are going through fertility issues, like you don't have that many Instagram accounts talking about it. Right. You don't have a lot of men being like, let me share my journey, like, going through this extraction procedure or like getting my hormones tested.
Interview Bobby.
I know.
Seriously.
I know I should.
You should interview him.
I feel like I've quizzed him. I've subjected him into a lot, so I have to like do it in small doses.
But in the
tell me
car,
your
when you have
ideas.
those conversations, you could like, you
Yeah.
know, these could become the conversations that you have, because it's so important for the guys to also understand what it is,
they
what it
don't
means.
have each other to lean on as much as women do. We're like totally like, this is great. I feel like I just like watched 10 episodes of Oprah. Like I feel so like open emotionally right now. It feels wonderful, you know. But I don't think men have that same outlet, and some of them maybe are lucky enough to have a great friend group where they can talk about these things. But I think most don't.
They should.
The South Asian community, get married, focus on all of that. I'm a single woman. I started my journey a few years back, and I did it on my own. So for me, financially, and I was in the pharmaceutical industry, so you think I would have known all my options, but I didn't. And for me, I had to do the research on my insurance. What are my options? For you, do you feel that I'm going to read this book, but is it something that needs to be open? Because, you know, there's a lot of women that are going to do it on their own. And they don't know what their options are. I already started the conversation with my nieces. They're 25, 21. I've already done that with them. And I'm like, what are you talking about, reality? And I'm like, no, listen, you can get these options.
Yes. I have a whole section on, it's called Love Makes a Family, because I don't think that the non-traditional paths are talked about openly, whether that be same-sex couples or single parents by choice, right? I don't say single, actually. I would say solo parenthood by choice, because it's like you're just not doing this with a partner, but it's a choice, right? And so I have a whole chapter on that, and that's something that I felt really important about this book. Even when my editor was like, wait a minute, I mean, how are we going to fit all these things in? And I was like, it's really important to represent individual journeys, because this is the reality. If I look at my schedule today, I mean, I saw 6 new patients. I spent an hour with each one. 2 people froze eggs. 1 person came to me to talk about donor sperm, to do this on her own. I had a gay same-sex female couple, and I actually saw a male that wants to do this on his own with a friend who would act as the egg donor. That was my day today. That's just one day of many. I'm not just seeing, you know, couples that are like, I'm here after 1 year of trying. So what I did in this book that's really cool is, this is an example of a decision tree. Obviously, you're not gonna be able to read everything on here, but this is family building options for solo motherhood by choice, because it feels overwhelming. You have a zillion options. And so I went with a decision tree. And actually the first one, and this might sound weird to start with, but are you emotionally/financially ready to pursue motherhood? That's like the first thing. No? Okay, well, let's explore support systems, financial planning, counseling. Yes? Okay, do you want to conceive right now? No? Okay, fertility preservation options. Yes? Okay, let's talk about sperm donor options. Like, there's a decision, and this is guidance, because this is uncharted territory where people are like, I don't even know where to begin. I know I have to probably think about a sperm donor, but like there seems to be a million options, but it's actually simpler than that. It's like you can break each thing into like 2 or 3 choices, and that's a decision on the decision tree. And so I hope that this will help people, because your journey is not a rare one. You know, there's a lot of people that are navigating this, and it shouldn't be like reinventing the wheel over and over and everyone having to fumble around and figure this out for themselves. But you guys know Hitha? Yeah. She's obviously in the pharmaceutical industry, so her and I talk about it all the time. Like, there's got to be a better way. And wouldn't it be lovely to get like Mark Cuban involved in all of this? He's been such a like great guy for like the breakthrough of trying to just like make drugs more affordable and accessible. And for better or for worse, there's this new Trump RX thing, which is actually reducing the cost of certain IVF drugs. So that is a newer breakthrough, regardless of how you feel about the labels. But it's not just the medication. The medication is a whole thing in and of itself. It has to be shots, because no one has figured out, and there's got to be a way to figure it out, a way to deliver the drug that is mimicking the signal your brain is supposed to send to the ovary. And for a lot of different pharmacologic reasons, the shots are the best way to do that. But I'm sure we can figure out a way to make it a pill, right? So that's something that is a struggle, and that's a barrier for a lot of people who are like needle phobic. But then on top of it, the cost is very expensive, and there's like a monopoly. You know, there's patents, and there isn't an ability for someone to be like, let me just make a generic. There's a lot of legal red tape. And so something I was talking to Hitha about like 2 years ago was, there's got to be a way to figure that out, right? Because it shouldn't be prohibitive. But then the cost of IVF itself, it's not just the drugs, it's everything that happens in the lab. And what I always explain to patients is, I'm not injecting your eggs with sperm. I'm relying on a team of 30 to 40 embryologists who have advanced degrees and are basically doing microsurgical procedures on your cells. And so they have to go through training, and they're super expensive. Like, they are well sought after. We lose embryologists to other programs, like, if we don't pay them enough. Like, so your overhead in running an IVF practice is insane. So whenever people are like, especially the aunties are like, why don't you have your own practice yet? I'm like, exactly. Oh, try millions. Like, it is crazy. And like, the equipment costs millions of dollars. I know. But it's like, just to open up an IVF lab takes millions and millions of dollars, and to maintain it. And it's not like you store and you just walk away. It's not like putting things in an ice cube in a freezer. It's like there's we have a backup generator. We have active monitoring. We have someone who's tasked with coming in at 3 a.m. if there's any variation in temperature. It's so precious what we're storing, and it takes so much effort and cost. And we do egg retrieval 7 days a week, so we have to have staff 7 days a week, because we don't want to say, oh, your egg retrieval should be done on a Sunday, but that's too expensive, so let's do it on a Monday. It's not okay, but there's a reason for the expense, and we have to find ways to reduce labor costs. I think everyone talks about like robotics and AI, but the reality is I just don't see. I think automation in the lab and making working smarter, not harder, all of that type of thing is going to help us to drive the cost down. But it's a real problem because of the huge amount of work and the undertaking that it is. And the only path that I see being realistic that's going to help in the next 5 years is going to be insurance companies playing ball, right? And because I can't figure out how do you make this really big undertaking less expensive, but I'm sure there are ways, and we need to continue to innovate and work towards that. But I think the biggest push that we're seeing is the private sector, like jobs offering benefits. And I think fertility insurance needs to become a universal thing, because this isn't a luxury. This isn't like going and getting, plastic surgery just because you want it. It's a fundamental thing that people need help with. And you can't talk out of both sides of your mouth and say, oh my God, the population is shrinking, people aren't having children, this is terrible for society, but we're not going to offer you any support once you do have children, and we're not going to help facilitate working around the biological clock. It's like the smartest thing any society that's worried about their shrinking population should be doing is helping people afford egg freezing. Like, I just did a post actually recently, I didn't even realize that France covers egg freezing and the cost of storage from age 29 to 37. Wow. And they're sending a letter to every 29-year-old man or woman saying, hey, just so you know, you have this benefit, and let me tell you about the biological clock. Some people are saying it's annoying. I actually think it's better than nothing. And at least they're not just saying, hey, you have a biological clock, good luck with that. They're actually giving you a resources. So I think that there's things that we can be doing, but I think right now, the near term, because I'm very focused on like what can we do now to help the people now, is when you go to a job interview, you should ask about their fertility benefits. Like, we should all be talking about this more and making it a priority. It sucks that that's where we have to look, but I think that we have to just drive for this change of saying, like, it's not a perk, it is a must, that we should all have this benefit.
Thank you so much for tuning into this special episode with Dr. Lucky Sekhon. We hope this conversation helped answer some of your questions and gave you helpful insight into fertility and reproductive health. It was also incredibly special for Rashmi to share her personal IVF journey in this episode. Opening up about such a personal experience is never easy, and we hope her story helps others feel a little less alone and more informed as they navigate their own fertility journeys. If you'd like to learn more, be sure to check out Dr. Sekhon's book, The Lucky Egg. We'd also love to hear from you. Let us know what you thought about this episode, and feel free to share your reviews or questions using the links in our social media bios so Dr. Sekhon can see your feedback as well. And just a reminder, the information shared in this episode is for educational and informational purposes only. If you have specific medical concerns or questions, please sure to reach out directly to Dr. Sekhon or your own healthcare provider. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Please remember that the content shared on this podcast reflects our personal experiences and perspectives. We are not providing professional advice in any field, including but not limited to creative pursuits, career guidance, or fertility matters. Our aim is simply to share our stories and connect with others who may be navigating similar journeys. Always seek guidance from qualified professionals for specific advice tailored to your individual circumstances.
The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only, and any reliance on the information provided in this podcast is done at your own risk. This podcast should not be considered professional advice.